You know what I think they should have done with the MCU? I mean, really, I think they should have put it on ice for like a decade. But considering they won't do that, what I think they should have done is skip all of this Doctor Doom stuff for Robert Downey Jr. No one cares. No one wants to see more confusing multiverse cringe. Just say that the body of Tony Stark was stored somewhere in Stark Industries after he died in Endgame, and someone has figured out a way to resurrect him. And then do Iron Man 4. Job done. The end. Be a perfect way to end the franchise, actually, coming back to the beginning with an Iron Man movie. But no, instead, we're going to get what looks increasingly like a convoluted time and reality bending contrived MCU crossover movie that the studio and the Russos likely hope will be on par with the two-part Infinity War and Endgame saga. And maybe it will. But the route that they've chosen to go down, I think, is so overly complicated and needlessly financially wasteful. I actually wonder if Avengers Doomsday might be doomed by its gargantuan budget. And the same goes for Secret Wars. Right now in the franchise, there's been a lot of MCU content in recent years. Let's be honest, content is the key word here. Content, stuff, filler. There hasn't exactly been an awful lot of quality material. There hasn't been much gold quality storytelling or originality. What was needed, I think, was simplicity, to go back to the basics. But instead they've gone for this Hail Mary pass of bringing Robert Downey Jr. back to help course correct the franchise. But I think there were other, better, simpler ways of doing it. One wonders if the same level of interest among fans is going to be there by the time Doomsday and Secret Wars come out, given the number of box office flops and bland TV shows that the MCU has produced in recent years. The brand is not as strong as it was in the heyday of Phase 3 going into Infinity War and then Endgame. Clearly, there's a belief that they can leverage the memories of the franchise's best days when it was at its strongest, and maybe that's true. But given the box office failures of late, Deadpool and Wolverine being the exception, I wouldn't exactly be banking on the success of Doomsday. Throwing massive amounts of money at the problem may not be the best way of guaranteeing a success. What if Doomsday and Secret Wars budgets are so massive that their costs cannot be recouped? Well, here's an article about the production budget so far for Avengers Doomsday. This article is from Forbes. Disney reveals spending on Avengers Doomsday. Disney has revealed that its upcoming Avengers Doomsday movie has already cost more than double the spend it spent on 2023's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania when it was at a similar stage of production. Now, I'm going to leave the article linked for you to read in full in the description box below. I want to skip down a good bit in this article. It talks about the franchise's recent history and leading up to the announcement of the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom. But this is the main part that I wanted to get into. This is what I'm most interested in. It says, like Infinity War and Endgame, the upcoming movies are expected to be filmed back-to-back, with principal photography due to start at the end of this month. Early insight into the cost comes from recently filed documents which reveal that 1 month before the Russos and Downey Jr. had been announced, Disney had already spent a staggering $8 million, £6.3 million, on pre-production. Keep in mind, this is just pre-production spending. Later it says the scale of the spending can only be seen when comparing it to other productions, which is no mean feat as their financial statements are all compiled at different times. One of the closest comparisons is Quantumania, that's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, as the first filings for its production company were dated September 30th, 2020, which was 10 months before shooting began, compared to 9 for Doomsday. Despite being at a similar stage in the production pipeline, Marvel had spent just $2.5 million, £2 million, on Quantumania by that time, which is a whopping 3 times less than it had shelled out on Doomsday. The FPC behind Quantumania was incorporated 10 months before the date of its financial statements compared to 15 months for all-time productions, which may partly account for its increased costs. However, even taking the average monthly spending, Doomsday comes out on top with costs of $531,919, which are double the $251,165 for Quantumania. So the question is, if this is what they've spent so far for Doomsday, and they haven't even started shooting the film yet, then what will the final budget for the film actually be? How much is it going to cost? If they've already spent much more than Quantumania at this point of the production process, and keep in mind that Quantumania had a huge budget. The final budget for Quantumania was about $330 million or something like that. It was gargantuan. It looks like Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars are going to be incredibly expensive. For obvious reasons, they're huge MCU crossover movies, and they're going to be they're going to be 2 of the biggest movies ever made, if probably the 2 biggest movies ever made, to be honest. And I'm aware as well that Robert Downey Jr.'s fee is going to be a considerable sum of money, to say the least. As you're probably aware, some estimates say that he's going to be paid $100 million and then some bonuses on top of that as well. So, look, personally, I don't think any actor is worth that amount. It'd be preferable just recasting. But there you have it. But no matter how significant Doomsday and Secret Wars end up being, even if they manage to recapture the high energy of Infinity War and Endgame, will their combined and growing costs simply make them too expensive to break even at the box office? These budgets, guys, are just getting absolutely insane. And as I said recently with my review of The Electric State, it's another example. That's a Russo brothers movie too. That's another example of a film where I just cannot see the budget on screen. $320 million for the Electric State. What is going to be the final budget for Doomsday and also for Secret Wars? We can only speculate. We can only estimate and approximate based on what's gone before. But this is, absolute insanity. You could be making multiple movies for the amount that they're spending. At some point, the wastefulness of Hollywood has got to come to an end, but there you have it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, guys, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.